I think we are ready to talk about Sahar Homami, who's coming up to present her work with Touchdesigner and her live AV experiences. Ash, you've had an opportunity to work a little bit with Sahar and get this presentation ready. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, but it's completely different than anything I normally work with, and really interesting and also really beautiful. So it was a pleasure to be able to assist in whatever way I managed to. I think it was me kind of just not really listening very much, if I'm honest. But I hope it was useful.
Sometimes that's the most fun, where we get to like hear something, you know, in its present, you know, in its beginning form, so that it can be presented to the community. And I'm excited to have more digital artists and represented here. So why don't we bring Sahar in and say hello? How are you today, Sahar?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Great to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
I think we will give you the floor, and I'm looking forward to your presentation, so we'll leave it with you.
Thanks very much. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Framework community, for having me on. It is a great honor, and it's also a pleasure to be with you all here today, including the ones that I cannot see. Hello to you. My name is Sahar Homami. Literal translation of my first name and last name to English would be dawn, as in early morning, the courageous. So I have a little bit of that writing for you over here. I have a background in material science engineering, and these days I'm practicing as an audiovisual artist, programmer, calligrapher, and a researcher. I am currently based between Berlin and Montreal. Today I'm going to be focusing on sharing with you some of my experiences over the past couple of years into the world of calligraphy, and also later on to visual programming, and then audiovisual experiences. Or shall I say, my thoughtful mother picked up Persian calligraphy as my instrument when I was 10 years old. Surprisingly, the hours and hours of repetitive and seemingly tedious ink dipping and cursive writing did not frustrate me at all. I think that was those were early signs of a promising, great personality in social situations. I still experience great enjoyment and transcendence in doing actual handwritten calligraphy. By the time I was 18, I graduated from this School of Calligraphy in Tehran. Calligraphy is considered a high art, and there's a very sophisticated school for it that you attend in basically separated from your own studies. Afterwards, I moved to Montreal in 2007 and did my second bachelor in fine arts in computation arts, which still today is one of those programs that I keep referring to in terms of how fundamental and crucial it was for my journey as an artist that I am today. So these, like in the past couple of years, I often find myself experimenting between different fields, which I think is just a given considering my past. I have always been drawn towards words, and particularly words in which one can marinate in. Initially, it was simply visual pleasure that entranced me, but years later, I'm impressed by the potentiality of language and words. Reflected in the words is a combination of digital photography and Persian calligraphy. My first mixed media project, a self-portrait that I did in 2010 as a parting project from one of my courses in my university. And I think it was the inception of these ideas that I had for bringing my skills in calligraphy into the digital realm. I was still unsure of what I was doing, but a little bit of a vision. So in this one, on the technical side, everything was done in Photoshop, and I used a distort filter and to use the black and white in the image to essentially create this possibility for the letters to be wrapped around the shape of the face and the hands and so on and so forth, as you can see. Then afterwards, I started working on a series I like to call visionary calligraphy, which are a series that I still expand on that are inspired by visionary art, sacred geometry, and calligraphy. Basically, what happens in these series is that each piece contains a word in Persian, and the words are separated into letters, repeated and arranged to create geometric shapes. So, for example, in this one, from left to right, we see intuition, improvisation, and flow. The series of experiments still continue. I'm still producing work with this idea in mind. These are some other experiments that I have done. And basically, my experience with the world of calligraphy really goes into practices such as practicing on a canvas and doing manual work, to teaching, to doing tattoo design, and so on and so forth. It's almost, I feel like the possibilities that I can do with it are endless. As a visual artist, I've always been fascinated with the way that music can collaborate with image for a multisensory experience. And it took me a second to realize that I have been fascinated with visual music and the fact that I've always loved music. At some point, I had to look into my university project archives, and the behavioral pattern was very obvious. I had almost always chosen to do a visualization that was accompanied with music. In 2017, I created Simple Rotation, the one that you can see as a teaser here. It's an abstract art film based on original compositions by John Camille Farah, a Canadian composer. If you'd like to see the full, the whole film as a full length, you can always go to my website and find more information about it. Then in 2011, I attended MUTEC in Montreal, and the live set of Plastic Man in Montreal with the visual design by Ali Demirel, who designed the LED cage for Plastic Man's live show, was the one that completely blew me away. And I think the inception of me wanting to do live visuals really came from there. So I started playing, in 2015, I started playing around with existing tools. The one that we're looking at right now is a project I did in 2016 with processing. So processing, I had a moment with processing. I did my very first collaboration in live audiovisual sets. I realized throughout this work that the process from vision to realization was not the one for me. There's a lot of actual like programming and coding involved in processing, and I already have enough on my plate for one lifetime. So I quickly moved on from processing into other experiments. And the one that stole my heart was Touchdesigner. So these are some of my early experiments in Touchdesigner with visuals, and the vision kind of was always there to. I kind of knew what I was getting to basically feel comfortable enough in this environment so I can start doing other kinds of experiments that I like to do with it. In the meantime, I also sometimes do commercial projects. In 2019, I did collaboration with an Iranian-American artist who is Irfan, who is an Iranian rapper, songwriter, and producer. I particularly enjoy working with him because he's one of the very few Iranian artists I know who have a sensitivity and a kind of a vision when it comes to carefully produced live events, and specifically also live visuals. So I felt there was a lot of artistic expression that I could do in these events, regardless of their commercial and mainstream nature. I have a bit of a lag here. Okay. So in 2019, I finally did my first audiovisual performance where I actually composed the music myself. This is the first audiovisual performance also where I incorporated the Persian calligraphy letters in. The word fanaa, which is the title of this performance, essentially means to die before one dies. It's ego death, and there's a very strong storytelling anchor in this performance for me, which I tried to put together, having various ideas. But for example, one of the things that happens with letters here is that the word is stripped away from its attached identities and meanings, and this is also, in other words, the state of absolute nothingness, where all words are losing meaning, and only then one can traverse and progress in its journey of awakening, let's say. For me, this performance became a very a kind of like one of the highlights of my personal practice. One that was almost, in a way, also a proof of concept about everything that I have had in mind to do with Persian calligraphy, and I was not just dreaming about it anymore. Especially because before that, I could not really imagine, because I thought that I have not come across it either. So I would have to really bring my own vision to life. Yeah, so I think from this point on, I would like to just quickly jump in and show you my Touchdesigner file. That is an example of how I create this kind of environment. It will be very, very brief, and I'm also definitely happy to do questions and jump into details at any other time. So I think I'm going to bring in my Touchdesigner session over here, or let's see, can I do that? Yes, I can. Okay. So essentially, this whole thing is now connected to a MIDI controller. So I'm controlling everything over here. Basically, what I do for this kind of work is I work with the particle GPU system inside of Touchdesigner. This is a built-in feature inside of Touchdesigner, which is a fantastic built-in feature. And the way I go about it is where we can assign a texture to be used for our particle system. I assign my already prepared letters, which I already vectorized beforehand, and I just put them in a container. So basically, my scene is able to read all of these letters from within this container, and then sending the information into the particle system that is actually over here. So over here, as you can see, the particles are rendered. And then the next thing that adds a lot of interesting possibilities in it is that the camera movements are, there's a couple of camera movements that are predefined and put into a preset order. So then what I do within the scope of the performance is I not only I have access to manipulate the letters and their behaviors, but I'm also changing camera angles and traveling through this universe essentially that I've created, which offers a lot of possibilities within the live performance. Yeah, this is about that. I hope this is something that is inspiring for you. And just to wrap up, what I'm going to be next is I'm also starting to a little bit dab into the world of mixed reality and AR experiences. So there is a project that I'm going to be conceptualizing in 2021, which is for making augmented reality calligraphy sculptures. You can see my concept on the right-hand side. So I'm going to be conceptualizing this idea in 2021. And my finishing words are just that my hope is that my art can offer a poetic, a philosophical, or spiritual experience for my audience, or at the very least, some eye-candy visuals. Our inner universe is concealed to us as much as the outer world, and I think the visual communication can be utilized as a medium to travel in between these inner and outer worlds simultaneously and sort of diminish these seeming barriers. My work revolves around looking at the human experience and reading about it and studying it, and also my own personal experience, and then turning it into certain environments that perhaps can provide a fertile ground for the audience to have new experiences that could help expand our views, our consciousness, our art of seeing, because I believe this is all under the umbrella of the art of seeing. And our eyes are the windows to our souls, whichever way that you look at it. If you'd like to keep in touch, you can always find me on social media and on Instagram and other places. And I will be happy now to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good day.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Thank you, Sahar. That was a really fantastic presentation, and I love this very ancient tradition having this new life in a modern way. It's really wonderful to see and see how much you enjoy sharing it. I think we're starting to have some questions come in from our attendees. I have a couple. Ash, how about you? Oh, you might be muted.
There we go. Yeah, I absolutely have a couple of questions as well.
I'll let you start. I started last time.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing that popped into my mind when you showed the AR sculpture is, have you thought about 3D printing, and what's your view on 3D printing as a technology?
Yes, I have thought about 3D printing. I love it. And I actually, when I was in university, I had some experience to dabble with it a little bit. I think when it comes to actual like material production, I'm a little bit hesitant. There's always this question of what kind of material to work with, and being a digital artist mostly, there's a little bit of hesitation I have there, but I really love the world of 3D printing, and I've definitely dabbled with it a little bit as well. I think it's actually with the AR sculptures that I'm thinking, I am thinking about making a cross connection between these two worlds.
That might be a nice segue into a question we have coming in. Not sure who this is from yet, but we have, speaking of barriers and seeing how you're moving into AR, is there an ideal screen or lack of screen that you'd like for your work? So here we were talking about physical printing, and now with AR, this is from Nika Ross, talking about a virtual screen, I guess, or what does screen mean to you to share your work in AR?
I think instead of screen, I would across the board, I would call them all canvases. For me, whether it's a physical canvas or a digital canvas or an imaginary, canvas, regardless, I'm happy to have an expression as an artist. I'm happy to express myself. So I think which kind of canvas we end up using at the end of the day is actually secondary to me.
I like that shaping of it, the idea of canvas. I was really struck listening to you talk. You said when you found Touchdesigner, you had like found your tool, or that's the impression I got from listening to you speak, because I had dabbled a little bit in processing. I had never spent much time in Touchdesigner myself, but it's always been one of those things I wanted to look at. Do you know what it was that really like spoke to you? Like, what was it about that tool that said this is where I can express myself?
There's a couple of things, definitely. I think it would be unfair to put them kind of in a hierarchy. I would say one aspect that's definitely been really important is the community. I am absolutely in love with Touchdesigner community. And I'm not the only one. I consider them family. The reason I'm here with you today is because of Isabel, for example. You know, the community of Touchdesigner is just like an extended family, and every time I've needed to consult with someone and get their expertise, I've always had help, and in return, I also try to do the same thing. Whenever possible, also by teaching, I try to give back a little bit. So that's one thing that I think is very important. Secondly, Touchdesigner environment, as some touch designers already say, is kind of like a mad scientist lab, and that actually gives a lot of freedom in terms of how you can custom build your own tools. So I think. Initially, this was very frightening to me, coming from very strict like 2D and 3D design software. I was coming from 3D design, completely familiar with Maya or Cinema4D or After Effects, and then coming to Touchdesigner, I was lost for months because I just could not grab a part of it and be like, okay, yeah, this is how the software functions. And it took a while to understand that, okay, if you're intentional with the software, if you know what you want from it, then you can get answers. And you can get answers better than you can probably get anywhere else, because of this possibility to make anything and everything you want in a custom built way. So I would say that that's the answer.
Great. We have another attendee question. Excuse me if I mispronounce your name, Mohammed Mabasheri. Will you offer courses in Berlin again in the near future?
Touchdesigner, you mean, or calligraphy? Because I do both.
Oh, you offer both well, you could answer both questions because I'm sure people will be interested.
Yes, definitely. As soon as we have a bit of a resolution or a bit of a vision about our near future, yes, I would love to.
Wonderful. Do we have any more attendee questions, Chris? I think I saw one on the list. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I thought I saw something come in from Shannon Harvey, but I don't see it. And maybe it was just a comment for us, but he did comment, the poetry and beauty of calligraphy is both an art and reflection of aesthetic expression as well as a modality of storytelling. What stories, storytellers, and messages are you most drawn to in your search for good words as the basis for your work?
Yeah, so actually I left that part out because I thought I was running out of time.
Okay.
There's a very strong anchor in my storytelling, and that is a dive into mysticism and literature that is around that. So I would say that is my strongest anchor. Typically, what I do is that I dive into a topic related to my own search in the world of philosophy and mysticism. For example, fanaa, the one that I was just showing you before, is about ego death. So for that, I actually did some research into the works of this Persian Sufi poet called After, who has a book called The Conference of the Birds, and there's a part of this poem where these birds that are set out on a journey. It's a very figurative story, but a kind of like there's a lot of double meaning to his figurative storytelling. So there's these birds that are setting out on a journey to find the wise one, the wise bird. And throughout this journey, they go through what is called the 7 valleys of love, or 7 valleys. Number has changed throughout history. Doesn't really matter, but they go through the 7 valleys, and by the end of this journey, what they realize is that what they've been looking for all along is just a mere reflection of themselves. So this is typically often the kind of narrative that I'm looking for, or the concept that I'm looking for. I dive deep into Sufi or mystic poetry, literature, philosophy, and I take out the concept and I develop it, do some research on it, and turn it into an abstract story.
I'm sure we could give you a whole session just on the way you develop those ideas. So yeah, thank you for finding a way to make that succinct. Well, I think this is where we must say, yeah. This is where we must say thank you and goodbye. We're so happy to host you here today, and we look forward to seeing you again on other framework events. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ash. Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure. All right, bye.
Bye, Sahar.